Hey guys, Anthony Jones here with the Top Gun John Boat, and this video documents the portion of my build where I do the interior flush mounted trim panels inside my John Boat to bass boat conversion. Guys, if you're new to the channel, please give me a subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below. I hope you guys enjoy this video and you can take something away from it. Follow me on Instagram at @AWJones, and again, subscribe and follow here on YouTube as I continue to put out more content on my John Boat to bass boat conversion, the Top Gun John Boat. Thank you. Enjoy. Okay guys, so this is a flush mount interior panel that I did in my John Boat. All right, now the way I'm going to show you how I've done it is just the way that I did it, that I thought would work best. So there's probably more than one ways to do this, so I'm not claiming to be an expert. I do fabricate and woodwork as a pretty serious hobby, and I used to do it as a trade, so I think my way is a great way, but that doesn't mean it's the best way. So anyhow, it's no secret in my boat it's all wood framing. So what I did here, if you could kind of see this, is I wood framed just a basic frame. And I'll go ahead and take this out. All I'm doing is I'm framing a real simple frame, and this is out of cedar, and I believe this piece here might be pine, but I know those are cedar. And it's just to give me something to mount some plywood to, that'll cover this rib and then create some airspace, because I'm going to run my wiring back in here. So this side panel is going to hide my wiring. It's going to give my daughter, when she's riding in here, she's almost 3. It'll give her a little bit of room to lean up against the side of the boat there and sit down on the floor and not get beat around and not sit on hot metal. Back here I did things a little differently, but this same technique for those that want to retain your floor system and not fully deck your boat, this same technique can be used back here. I opted to go with the storage compartment there, and then over here I've got some access to all my wirings where my my main junction for all my gang switches and my fuse block will be. So anyhow, but we're talking about this. So here's the framing. Let me show you how I did this. It's not really a step-by-step, but I'll show you how I did this. Super lightweight here. I mean, this is nothing. All I've done was on the ends, I've just marked everything out, did a screw up, diagonal, little L bracket. I'm just using these really heavy duty decking screws with a star bit. I think they're like 1/2 inch screws. So I mean, it's real simple. Now, the one thing that I did was I did notch the back, okay, so it could go over the rib. All right, so I'm going to insert it. I'm going to show you. See how that goes over that rib? See where that notch is? It goes over the rib, so it'll sit flush. The other thing I had to do was, because the boat, on my boat, it does that curve as it goes to the front. I did cut a wedge, and I mounted that on this piece, just to give me a little bit more room, because my board didn't want to lay flat across here. So that just kind of spaces it out to go with the curvature of the boat. It's probably going to be different from boat to boat. And then I added this one little piece here of wood trim on the top. And I also cut my top piece. I ripped it on an angle, because if you see over here, I want that angle to match the angle on the top of my bench. So all those little details, you can kind of modify this design how you see fit. The reason I capped it in this little trim piece is because I'm going to wrap this in carpet. When I wrap it in carpet, I don't want like an exposed edge here, a big old gap, if that makes sense. So anyhow, that's why I did that. I'm sure there's a way you could notch it and not notch all this out, just notch enough. If you got a rib, if not, I mean, you're golden. So that's it, and it fits real tight in there. And now I'm going to cut a piece of plywood. That's the tricky part, because I've got to get it, like you see over here, this part's finished. I've got it, it's a lot of angles. So it's nothing in this part at all is square. So it's pretty tricky. So I'm gonna get to that though. This is a little tip. A lot of times it's hard to get an accurate measurement as far as what you're going to need to the carpet, because none of this stuff really sits 100% how you're going to want your board to be cut. So what I do is I use, this is the plywood I'm going to use, it's 1/4 inch. And so to get my shape that I'm going to cut for this bad boy, I'm actually use a piece of 1/4 inch wood, and I just lay it in there, and then that gives me something to hook to, and I can measure up to the top, and that's going to be right at 1 foot. And that's how I get my measurement. It's a lot more accurate than coming in here and trying to butt the carpet and figure out, you know, where exactly your plywood's going to hit in there. So I would suggest, if you're doing something like this, just get you a little piece of 1/4 inch, man, lay it in there and hook it, and measure up, because that's sitting right on that carpet where it's going to sit as if I were to cut it out of this big piece. So that's just a little tip of how I get my measurements in these tight areas and not have to walk back and forth and trim and trim and trim. So try to get it right the first time. I've got my piece of plywood cut, and actually I will get in and kind of show you what I'm working with here. So how I decided to do it, because I've got so many angles, is I'm going to 2-piece it. So I sectioned off this and squared it off, and then I'm going to cut a little piece that'll go underneath that. But as I pop this bad boy off, you kind of see my wires are tucked behind. I am going to have to run a little bit of a spacer, because this was pushed in too far. So I'm going to cut a little piece of wood and attach it to the back side of this to space it a little bit further off. That was the only issue I saw in my framing. So that's just for mock-up purposes. But let me show you this so you get an idea of how I had to square all that is. So I've got a different measurement from here to here. I've got a different measurement from there to there, and a different bottom and a different top. The only thing this square on this board is actually across from here and there. That's square. Everything else is just random measurements, because it's just a random section inside the boat. I did the casting deck up front, and then I did the middle bench and did a floor system, and so this is just kind of where I'm at. So but again, that's that piece. It's gonna look like that, so we're on our way. A little bit of Gorilla Glue construction adhesive. I'm gonna mount this plywood, and then I'm gonna screw it. Got my wood cut and mounted. I kept it simple and did it in 2 sections instead of trying to overcomplicate things and make a million measurements and cut it out of 1 section. I cut the smaller piece here with the notch around that, and the larger piece with the awkward measurements that I've already shown you. So one thing I will note is that I do leave an 1/8 of an inch gap for clearance all the way around. For carpet. So when I wrap it in carpet, it'll have a snug fit, and that'll allow me a little bit of extra room, you know, to wrap it. So use number 4 3/4 inch screws to attach my wood to my framework with the Gorilla Glue construction adhesive behind it. No, these are not stainless, but that's okay, because my next step is to sand this panel very lightly, just give it a good scuffing, and knock down some rough edges. And I'm going to paint it in oil-based paint to preserve the wood for moisture, as a moisture barrier, and then I'm going to wrap it in carpet. So that's where I'm at, and we're moving on. One thing I want to show you guys is I could probably easily come down here with a sander and sand that and carpet it, and it would probably be fine. So I'm not saying you have to go to this length, but see how there's a gap in there? I just don't want any airspace or anywhere where carpet can bubble. I could have cut that on an angle and made it super tight, but I was kind of lazy. I figured, I remember on the other side when I did it, I just came in here with some of this all-purpose putty by Bondo, mixing it up now. I'm just going to spread that down this crevice and fill all that in. And then I'm going to block sand it out with my power sander and smooth it all out. And then I'll have a nice rounded edge. So you'll see how that comes out. Like I said, overkill. I'm just letting you know this is a little trick I do on some of my stuff. So got the panel all sanded up. I used my DeWalt palm sander with 60 grit, really coarse. And you can see how I just shaped that edge and gave it a nice little roll. Just a little bit of a curve, so it'll wrap it nice and easily. So went ahead and filled in some holes. I had some screws that didn't grab, so I filled those holes in and tightened up this joint with it as well. And that's it. I sanded the whole panel. I kind of hit the back a little bit to knock down some of this roughness. And now I'm going to, like I said, paint it and get ready for carpet. Okay, went ahead and used the old go-to of mine, the Gorilla Glue construction adhesive. I use it kind of like caulk in some situations on my boat. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it's worked so far. So all I did was come in with it, and anywhere I saw a crack or a seam, mainly on this back side, in between some of these trim pieces, I'm just filling it with that, and that's what I did. You can see over here, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, and that's okay, because you're not going to see any of that. What you're going to see is this. And so I went behind and filled it all in, and that way if the boat gets flooded, no water, hopefully no water, will penetrate any of these nooks and crannies and eventually cause wood rot. So taking every precaution I can in my build, and that's one of the reasons why it's taken me so long to get this boat together. Got it all painted up, oil-based paint, Rust-Oleum. I think I did like 2 coats. Sometimes I do 3. I like a nice sheen. This wood will soak that paint up. So 1 coat is definitely not cutting it. Sometimes you can get with 2, sometimes 3. Call me overkill. But I get in all the nooks and crannies, all painted up. So what this will do is repel water if it gets wet, preserve it, keep it from rotting out. Of course, I've showed you all the techniques and things I've done to make it waterproof as possible. This is the paint I use, guys. Get some questions on that. Gloss smoke gray. That's what I've used throughout the build. So that's what I'm using. Gloss smoke gray. Now it's time for carpet. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this and do the final install. As far as the carpet portion is concerned, if you want to check out my carpet video, check that out. I'm not going to go into high detail of how I'm doing the carpet, so next time you see this piece, it'll be all carpeted up. The panel is carpeted now, and it came out real nice. You could see how that rolled edge kind of turned out on top. Like it, love it. This panel was a little bit more difficult to wrap. If you see how I had to roll my corners, and then actually where I've got that inset there for my rib on the boat, and then obviously corners and just different angles and whatnot. But it turned out nice, real tight, real nice. So the only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some foam insulation on the back side of this. My rib inside my boat runs right here, so I'm going to cut some pieces to measure to go in here, and then over here cut to fit for whatever the measurement is inside the boat. Got my insulation. I already cut a couple pieces out for this. I just want to show you guys this if you have never seen it before. If you watch some videos, you've probably seen it, but it's just 3/8 thickness insulation, and you can get it at Home Depot, Lowe's. And what I'm using it for is to fill these voids. Otherwise it'd be airspace back behind this panel. So anywhere I can stick foam in the boat, I'm sticking it. And so every little bit helps and adds up. But what this is going to also do is what I've noticed with my floor system being foam and then the wood and the carpet is it really quiets everything down. When you're inside the boat walking around and dropping things, it really dampens that noise. But it does the same thing when you're riding in the boat from the water beating on the outside of an aluminum boat. If you've ever ridden in an aluminum boat, you know what I'm talking about. So with these side panels, with this insulation and then that wood and carpet, it's really going to numb the noise down when you're riding around from the outside. It's a smoother ride, so that's what I've noticed. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm going to glue these parts in. Got the foam glued in. It sat overnight. I'm going to show you how this goes in here. This corner is just going to lock underneath how I did my lip system that hides my LED lighting. Just locks in. It slides into place. So to permanently attach this, I'm not going to do this because I've still got some wires and some things to run before I bolt down everything permanently. So I'm not going to do that as of this second, but I'll tell you how I plan on doing it is just simply by, this is all wood in here, and I'm just going to put a screw in and tie it into this somehow. And then on this back side, remember we've got solid wood. That whole section there is solid wood. I'm talking about this. So I'm going to actually go on the inside of my hatch system, and I'll show you guys here. I'm I'm going to go on the inside of this hatch, and on that back wall in here, I'm going to do a screw through the top and a screw through the bottom. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's just going to go, it's going to go through and tie in here and then tie in here. And so that's how I plan on doing it. I may change that, but nonetheless, it's going to be screwed in somehow. And it's a nice tight fitment. I don't have really any air gaps, so I accounted for that, and it turned out nice. So hopefully you guys can take something away from this and possibly mimic this design, or take what I've shown you and maybe build upon it. Another thing that would be cool on this would be to do some LED lighting incorporated in here, since it is hollow behind it. You could do some kind of a courtesy light built in, or something else maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of making this up as I go along. So I did want to do flush mounted panels on this, because when I take my about to be 3-year-old out, this will be her little area up front to sit in. And that's kind of why I didn't deck this thing all the way out, guys. That's why I only ran my deck to here and left my middle bench, because I wanted my boat to be enjoyable for my little one to go out on the water with me. So this is going to be kind of her little area, and I envision her kind of catching some sun and leaning back against these side panels while we cruise around in the water. So you could probably do the same idea and do it in the back as well. So I did some things a little bit differently in the back, but anyhow, that's all I got, guys. So thanks for watching, and until next time, may your tiny boat builds be awesome. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you got some use out of this video, and hopefully you guys can utilize this in some way in your John boat to bass boat conversion. Guys, if you like the content, man, show your support and go ahead and give me a subscribe. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe for future content. If you have Instagram, follow me there. Follow my build process there. It's at @AWJones, and you can search for my build on Instagram, #TopGunJohnBoat. Thank you, guys, and as always, build some crazy boats, guys.